So something that I want to talk about is ancestry karma. It's interesting because I have been watching a lot of TikToks. That's not unusual, but a lot of people are joking about ancestry karma in general because why not joke about trauma? I love it, but obviously, if you want to or not, it's up to you. But I'm really glad that the topic is being more so talked about it, and that we can kind of like oh, we don't have to joke about it, but I think the point is that, you know, there have been conversations around ancestry karma for quite a while, even if it's not called ancestry karma. It's kind of called like ancestry curses in essence. And this is something that people feel that they cannot get away from, that they are cursed with, that their like life is over essentially, or maybe that's dramatic, but honestly that their incarnation is to resolve these things and that they are beholden to them and that they can't really have a life essentially. And while I do feel it is true that the intention is for you to work through these issues, it's not intentional that it overtakes your life. It's intentional that you transmute it, So I feel like it's just kind of an interesting conversation to have, and I don't want anybody to feel like they're beholden to this energy because it's really not the point. So in terms of the intention of ancestry karma, I find that there's like two different things going on. Number one is that we intend to incarnate into a family or like a family friend dynamic which matches our learning lesson. Maybe we have karma that we need to resolve and the energetic signature of it just like matches super closely to whatever we are getting ourselves into. And this is kind of like a chosen path. So in that sense, there's alignment there. So that's number one. Number two is a little bit more logical if you don't want to get, witchy in terms of intentional incarnation. It's simply that as families go through their different generations and their different bloodlines, the issues that they have are either intentionally or unintentionally directed at or projected onto their children or other people in their family. So if you have negative energy that you've been harboring because your parents, your aunts, uncles, your grandparents, whatever, have like serious issues with these topics, they're going to project that negative energy onto you. And unless you transmute it or, fix it, rectify it, however you want to call it, you're going to do the same to your children, right? And like, I think there's a lot of challenges with this, and there's a lot of sad parts about this as well. I know that there's a term for it, and it's like called some type of a paradox or some type of a fallacy, where it is simply that you have been a certain way for such a long period of time that you have just become so accustomed to not addressing this negative energy, rejecting it, repressing it, that it is like almost or nearly impossible, even though it's not, but you feel that way or you think that way, in order to, turn this ish around, essentially. Over time, negative energy and these negative experiences, these memories, these traumas, they kind of like become a part of us, even though we don't want it to. I think that we kind of like kid ourselves that we actually have dealt with it when we really haven't. And the key the key marker of that truth is if it is still even indirectly affecting us over time. And sometimes I think it can be hard to kind of understand the correlation, but when we start to ladder things up to an overarching concept or theme. So, if there was a self-love issue with your ancestors and their generations and your relationship, energetic dynamic with them, and you're still struggling with it, but it is in a slightly different physical manifestation, one could really bypass all of this and consider it to be chalked up to something else. But if the overarching concept or theme aligns, then like if the shoe fits, it's the same thing. It's just not, you're just not dealing with it in the exact way. Like maybe that's something that's like a non-negotiable for you, like that particular physical manifestation is absolutely not going to happen, but it ultimately, that energy needs to go somewhere, right? Like something needs to happen. So you just kind of like execute it or project it out in a different way. So I guess we can start with the question of why. Why does any of this happen? Why does negative energy happen in general? But why do these curses, these cycles, these learning lessons, these karmas happen? I guess you can, talk about what is the point of life and what is the point of these learning lessons, but It is simply that we intend to go through them at the end of the day. I know it seems totally outlandish, totally crazy to think that, but I do feel that it is true for whatever reason. I think that we learn a lot, we evolve a lot. We not just learn and evolve ourselves, but we learn and evolve on behalf of the collective, because I do feel that we are all energetically intertwined in some way, shape, or form. And I think that depending on what the situation is, it's just, a matter of fact of point and place in time. If you happen to, in very similar dimensions or similar experiences, go through similar learning lessons, it's likely that you will perpetually, through law of intention and law of attraction, keep going through them until you sort it out, until you figure it out. So this kind of leads into really the answer here, which is that transmuting this energy and learning the lesson is really how you move on from these situations and experiences. It really can seem like this situation that you find yourself in, this ancestry karma, whatever it is kind of like a death sentence. It's a curse that really can't be undone. But thinking that is basically the self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you genuinely think and feel that it is never going to get better, that you're always going to be stuck in this loop, then genuinely you aren't. Because if we talk about the different steps of transmuting negative energy, number one is acknowledgement. So most people, like in some way, shape, or form, of course, are aware of it, but I do feel that acknowledgement goes on like a deeper level, and it's that like, this is really a problem, this is really an issue, because you can acknowledge something existing, but it takes another level to acknowledge that you're no longer going to deal with it, essentially. Acceptance is the next one, and that is really that you come to terms with it, you come to peace with it, and that you don't reject it, repress it, feel these like guilty, shame feelings about it anymore. You just kind of have to accept it overall. And this seems like you can do it kind of overnight, but sometimes it's like a bit more challenging, because typically people, people over time just have so much built up negative energy surrounding it, so much resentment, and energetic orbs are like gigantic webs. So you may not be just accepting the situation as it is, but consider accepting anything and everything it's caused. Like if this has been a problem which you've experienced and faced throughout your entire life, you may need to accept that some of your downfalls, some of your failures, some of your not living up to your expectations, anything and everything that's been negative could potentially be laddered back to this. And when you can accept, you also take responsibility for yourself. And that's really, really hard to do, because again, when you take responsibility for yourself, chances are it's not just about one thing. Yeah, this process is about one thing, but it spans way beyond that. It's like a domino effect. You take self-responsibility for one thing, you end up taking it for a lot of things. Proactive transmission of this energy is the next part, which is really the point and time and place where you break out of this loop, where you break out of these fears. So there's kind of like two different ways that I imagine this happening. It's pretty much through meditation. If you want to directly address the negative experiences, this can be somewhat overwhelming for people, which is good that I don't feel like it's like mandatory, but it is quick and it's efficient. So if you kind of go through a guided meditation where you, again, readdress all of these things and you reframe it out of your ego, and by that I mean, in that situation, it's likely that that moment ended and you were like, this is my fault. I feel like shit about myself. This is my problem. I was the problem. That's not truth and reality, right? Because you were likely some sort of a victim in that situation if you're hanging on to it, right? Not everyone's a victim in every situation, but if you're hanging on to this negative energy, it's likely you were a victim. And so that's like one way that you can do it. And again, make sure that you're really ready and prepped before, you do that, because it can be very emotionally overwhelming. You don't want to go into that situation if you're not feeling up to it. But if for whatever reason you don't want to do that at all, that's fine. You have another option, which is that you can seek out new positive experiences related to the overarching concept and theme. The quickest example that I have about this is that when you are dating a lot of people and you've had a lot of negative experiences and you've decided that you're going to change your outcome, change your trajectory, and you have already done the acknowledgement and you've already done the acceptance, then you can kind of like re-go out there again. And, you know, I'm not saying that this is going to be the most beautiful situation and scenario, but yeah, I think that you have a much better chance of it working out well for you, because if we imagine through simple addition and subtraction that you have more negative orbs or negative like energetic parts of you related to a particular concept and theme, typically we just stop right there, right? Because we are in self-preservation mode, we're in trauma mode, and we don't want to seek out new experiences, opportunities, because we are going to continue that loop. And the truth is, if we don't acknowledge and accept it, we will probably continue the loop. So, you know, you're kind of right in feeling that. But that's why you need to do the steps first, and then you'll ultimately change your outcome. And yeah, you can, of course, do this safely. You can do this with, you know, a sense of boundaries. I'm not saying that you need to like jump off a cliff if you were cliff diving and had a bad experience, but yeah, I think you primarily get it. You know, every time I think about ancestry karma, it's very, very powerful. It's very overwhelming energy. And, you know, I don't want to bypass the struggles and the negativity and the trauma that people have gone through at the hands of their family and those experiences. And I don't want to downplay how difficult it can be to change your life, to stop these loops, to stop these curses, because it really is. But I think at the end of the day, I can see how much healing people have done, how much power people have by changing these trajectories. Like if this is something that you're in the process of doing, if this is something you've done, you are, I don't even know, you're a super person. You're like you know, a wizard, basically. Like this is gnarly stuff, depending on how deep it goes. It is gnarly, but there is ultimately a positive outcome if you allow there to be. Every concept and theme is a swinging door. Whatever, you know, thematically was negative, it can be turned into positive. You can use these negative experiences to teach others, to share with others. You can change not only your life, but other people's lives. And a lot of people need help, you know? So you're not even just doing this for yourself. You're doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your ancestry line, those who come after you. Because you can also retroactively heal your ancestors, even ones that have passed away. I've seen it happen. I've read it happening. And the collective at large, because a lot of people go through similar concepts and themes. So it's crazy stuff. I think that probably the biggest question that I will get is, how do I know? How do I know if I have ancestry karma? And I'll be honest with you, there's not a great way of figuring it out, but here is what I would recommend. Intention set. This is the first place you want to start, because it is likely you have not been doing this if you don't know, and that's fine. It's just that a lot of people don't want to address it. They want to run away from it. They don't want to deal with it. Unfortunately, doesn't always help. And energy has a way of finding you. It catches you. It comes back. So you have to truly want to know. You have to truly want to do the work, because when you know, when you're in that acknowledgement phase, it is real hard to go back the other way. You're kind of like, you're on the racetrack. You got to finish the race type of a thing. So I think doing that will provide you a lot of insight. You can just ask in your, you can just ask in your mind. You can ask out loud. You can journal it, however you would like. One could really just pick out issues that, which I'm sure everyone wants to talk about that at Thanksgiving dinner. You can keep it to yourself. You don't have to share it with them. If you just pick out repetitive problems, really, really big problems, any kind of like feelings that you have, any resentments that you have, things that stick out to you, these are all clues. And it may not be obvious. You may have to kind of like journal it, write it down, understand, you know, the patterns in order to deduce these concepts and themes. But when you start looking for it, it will become more obvious. And as long as you are willing to kind of like look into it and observe that even smaller things can be a sign, that perception is going to provide a lot of insight. I'll be honest with you. It's a process. I don't even know what to say. It's a lot. It's gnarly. It's intense. And I hope that people know that there are a lot of times I read people and their ancestors come through and want to provide help and support. A lot of times it's ancestors that have like nothing to do with this issue, or they're just kind of like on the outskirts of this issue and they're helping you. If you set the intention to ask for help, you will get help. Okay. So just remember that. Just keep that in mind at the end of the day. Yeah, I think that's all I have to share for now. I'll be doing a blog post about this shortly, so if there's anything I missed, I will include it there. Yeah, feel free to ask questions, share your thoughts. I'm really interested to hear how people are resonating with this now that it seems like it's getting more exposure, getting more insight and attention, which I'm excited about. Peace. Bye.